Anger is a silent architect, designing destruction in our lives even before we realize. It's more than just a momentary outburst. It is a force that warps our reality, shatters relationships, and erodes our very souls. Today, we are not just talking about anger, we are exposing its true nature and learning how to master it before it masters us. If you are ready to reclaim your peace, protect your relationship, and transform your life, hit that subscribe button now. This is the wisdom you need, and the journey starts here. Anger is not just a fleeting emotion, it is a force of nature, a silent storm that brews within us, shaping our thoughts, actions, and ultimately our destiny. Like a master architect, it builds the unseen wall of destruction, slowly but surely eroding the very foundations of our lives. Today, we stand at the edge of this storm, not merely to witness its fury, but to understand it, to disarm it, and to reclaim the peace that it so often steals. This is not just a battle against an emotion, it is a battle for our very souls. Anger is a master architect, silently constructing the bridges of destruction before we even realize it. It is a force so primal, yet so misunderstood, that its true nature often escapes even the most careful and the keenest minds. While many see anger as an emotion that flares up and then subsides, the reality is far more intricate. Anger is not merely an emotion. It is an entity that, when left unchecked, designs the blueprint for chaos in our lives. Anger is like a double-edged sword. It has a dual nature. On one side, it can serve as a catalyst for change, fueling our desire to correct wrong and stand against injustice. On the other side, it can become a wildfire, consuming everything that comes in its path, leaving behind only ashes of regrets and destruction. The key to understanding anger lies in recognizing this dual nature and learning to wield this with precision. Anger is not dangerous merely because it leads to physical violence. The true danger of anger lies in its ability to warp our perception of reality. When we are angry, our mind becomes narrow, our vision becomes tunnel-like. It is enclosed in that tunnel that we only see what fuels our rage. We are ignorant of other people's feeling. We are ignoring the broader picture. This tunnel vision can lead to decisions that are not just harmful but catastrophic. In moments of anger, we often become the very thing that we despise. The calm, rational self is overshadowed by a darker, impulsive force. We lash out, we say things that we don't mean, and we do things that we wouldn't normally do. But the aftermath of anger is perhaps the most painful part. When the fog of rage lifts, we are left to deal with the consequences of actions that we cannot undo.
To act in anger is to give power to a moment of madness. The decisions we make in the heat of anger are rarely, if ever, the right ones. The brain, in a state of anger, operates differently. It bypasses the logical, rational parts of our mind instead of relying on the primal fight-or-flight responses. In this state, we are not thinking, we are reacting, and reactions made in anger are often reactions we later regret. Think of anger as a storm. In the midst of a storm, it's impossible to see clearly. The wind howls, the rain pours, and visibility is reduced to almost nothing. Acting in anger is like making decisions in the middle of that storm. You might think you're making the right choice, but when the storm passes, you realize the damage that's been done.
Anger doesn't just destroy relationships, it erodes the very fabric of who we are. Every time we give in to anger, we chip away at our own character. We become less patient, less understanding, less compassionate.
Over time, anger can turn us into people we don't recognize. People who are quick to judge, quick to blame, and slow to forgive. But the most insidious cost of anger is the way it affects our health. Chronic anger has been linked to a host of physical ailments, from heart disease to digestive problems. It weakens the immune system, making us more susceptible to illness. In short, anger is not just a mental or emotional issue, it's a physical one as well.
So, how do we disarm anger before it wreaks havoc? The first step is to recognize it for what it is, a force that, if left unchecked, will control us.
We must learn to pause in moments of anger, to step back and assess the situation before reacting. This pause, however brief, can make all the difference. Another crucial step is to understand the triggers of our anger. Anger is rarely about the present moment. It is often rooted in past hurts, unmet expectations, or unresolved conflicts. By identifying these triggers, we can start to address the underlying issues rather than merely reacting to the surface-level provocations.
Mindfulness and self-awareness are powerful tools in this regard. By staying present and aware of our emotions, we can catch anger in its early stages before it has a chance to escalate. This allows us to choose our responses rather than being controlled by them.
The final step in dealing with anger is perhaps the most transformative, and that is learning to use it as a force for good. Anger, when we harness it properly, can become a powerful motivator for change. It can drive us to stand up for ourselves, to stand up for others, to fight against injustice, and to make positive changes in our lives. But this requires a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing anger as something to be suppressed or ignored, we must learn to see it as a signal that something in our lives needs to be changed. By addressing the root cause of our anger, we can transform it from a destructive force into a constructive one. Anger is a formidable force, but it is not an unstoppable one. By understanding its nature, recognizing its danger, and learning to handle it with care, we can prevent it from becoming the architect of our destruction. Instead, we can master anger. We can use it to build a life of peace, understanding, and positive change. In a world where anger seems to be everywhere, this mastery is more important than ever. It is the difference between a life controlled by emotion and a life guided by wisdom. And in the end, it's the difference between living as a victim of our anger and living as a master of it.